Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're doing a review for the new Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom Golden Disc Collection, Autobot Jackpot, and Autobot Sights. Jackpot is a character who's received, I think, a sum total of 2 toys over the years. One his G1 original, as well as an animated club exclusive, or BotCon exclusive from some years ago now, quite a few. And originally, the character was a Generation 1 Action Master, meaning he was a simple action figure with no transformation. And like most Action Masters, he included a transforming partner in the form of Sights, who was a robotic bird that turned into a blaster for Jackpot to wield. And though Jackpot did not transform, he had kibble on him that suggested he had a car alternate mode. In fact, his body type looked very similar to that of Jazz, or, well, Jazz's animation model anyway. So because of that, this toy, as well as the previous animated toy, have been recolors or retools of Jazz's. So in this case, this new Jackpot is a new head retool of the Studio Series 86 Jazz. And then Sights is a little weird because instead of a bird, this time he's a Pteranodon, being a recolor of the Siege Pterodax Battlemaster. And officially, he turns into an axe. Though something the packaging and the product descriptions fail to mention is that the Pterodax mold does actually have a blaster mode too. It's really just the axe on its side because there's like a little 5mm handle, and the axe handle becomes the gun barrel. So it is funny that they don't acknowledge that, because that would have put this toy a lot closer to the original. It's already bad enough he turns into a flying lizard and not a bird. But, at least lucky for us, despite their lack of pointing it out, Sights can still turn into a blaster. So, that's good at least. Anyway, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at the toy's packaging. Then we'll open it up, we'll see the instructions, and then we'll see Jackpot and Sights themselves in both alternate and robot modes, or I guess in Sights' case, beast mode. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So our toys come in your Golden Disc Collection style of box. It's mostly a blind box on the front with 1/4 of the Golden Disc, meant to be combined with the 4 other releases in this line to create one whole picture of the Golden Disc. Then you get all your logos and branding here around the edge. You get the names of the characters right there. On the top, you get their names and a logo again, and you get a little bit more of the disc, and still a little bit more on this side, which makes, the whole combining gimmick kind of redundant. Here's just a starry backdrop with their names, and then on the back, we get renders of both Jackpot and Sights. Jackpot taking 20 steps to transform, and Sights taking 5. And you see here, they just show Sights in his axe mode, which, is cool. It's a nice looking axe mode. The black and purple with the orange little blast effect is pretty nice. Luckily, that blast effect can still be used in the gun configuration because it's got a little hole right here that plugs into the tip of the barrel. So that's really neat. And I will say, based on the renders, these guys do look very cool. Now, one point of concern that I'm going to address and kind of cross my fingers on, a lot of people in Canada have already received this set because Amazon Canada shipped these earlier than here in the US. And most, if not all, of those purchasers, when they opened their toy up and they got a look at Jackpot, they found that the 2 halves of his head, which are oddly split like down the front of his face instead of split like horizontally across the sides, they're misaligned pretty severely. Where like one side is, higher up than the other, or rotated, I guess, more up than the other. And it's pretty unsightly. I'm hoping that was something isolated to those early shipments, and that won't be the case here. However, I don't really know for sure. But we're going to find out here momentarily, and I really hope that's not the case, because it's going to ruin what's likely an otherwise very good toy. Also, before we open this, I'm going to go ahead and show off how this compares and combines with the box with our previous release, our Puffer and Road Ranger that I just reviewed previously with this one. So you can see what they're doing here, right? You're getting now half of your golden disc, and then we'll get 2 more that sit up here to complete the full circle. Not as exciting as some of the previous combining artwork that Amazon has done with their exclusives in the past, but it's still pretty neat. It gives you a reason to maybe keep the boxes if you want a nice little maybe mini poster or something to have. Now we get our instructions for Jackpot and Sights. Get their toy renders on the front, along with the branding, their names, all that good stuff. Right when we get into it, we have the same thing we had for Jazz, where it shows you how to tuck away his door wings on his backpack once you get him out of the packaging. Little how-to for having him wield his blaster or stored on his back. And then we get to the transformation to vehicle mode. And that continues across the top here on the backside, including weapon placement. Then we get Sights' transformation from Pteranodon to axe that can be wielded by Jackpot, or alternatively, as we'll see, use as a blaster. And then what's really cool is they actually show you how you can place Sights on top of Jackpot's vehicle mode. The unfortunate thing is that there aren't enough connection points or 5mm ports to have both Sights and the blaster on the vehicle. You have to choose one or the other, and that's really unfortunate. Not too surprising. These were two molds that weren't specifically made to, be compatible with each other. So, you're going to see stuff like that happen. It is unfortunate that you can't get like full weapon storage here in the vehicle, but at least you do have the option of attaching Sights if you want to. And now here we get our two characters. You get Jackpot in his vehicle mode, Sights in his beast mode. And one thing I want to bring up, aside from the head sculpt, the other common complaint that people are having with Jackpot is color matching on the yellows. And you can see here, it specifically comes into play right here in the front area, where you have yellow plastic right there, and then yellow paint here. And it's true, they don't match up perfectly. The paint's a much brighter color than the plastic. I will say, however, it doesn't look nearly as bad in person as it does on camera. There's something about the way cameras pick up the yellow that makes this far more glaringly obvious than it does just by looking at it. Like, looking directly at it, not through my screen here, it's not nearly as bad. Like, yeah, you can see the difference, but they at least look like the same shade of yellow. Whereas on camera, this looks, much warmer than it actually is. So, if that's something that bothers you, I don't think it should be anything that stops you from getting this toy. It's really not as bad looking in person as it is, in photos and videos and all that. And then we get to Sights here. Now, Sights, I love his colors. The deep blue on black is a really nice look. What I don't love is that there is not a lick of paint on this guy at all. They didn't even bother to paint his eyes. Now, on the one hand, that's actually accurate to the original Sights toy. The original Sights toy wasn't painted either. He was just blue and black plastic. However, I don't think that's a very good reason to have his eyes completely unpainted like that. It makes him look very unfinished, and every other version of this mold, which we'll see momentarily, does have at least some paint there on the head. So he's really lacking in that regard, and he's really only saved by what I think are just phenomenal colors. Now, looking more at Jackpot's vehicle mode, you can see the blaster mounted on top, which is of course totally optional. The wheels roll quite well, no clearance issues or anything. His back bumper area isn't as bad looking as Jazz's. You can see he's got, the obvious feet there, but because the plastic on the feet is the same color as, the back of the body here, it actually kind of works. And then he's just got, orange highlights kind of painted on him. So I think it works out a little better with his specific coloration. And then, of course, while we have them in these modes, we have to look at that compatibility. So you can go ahead and remove the blaster and just set it aside, unfortunately. Have Sights just face up. And then use this little post right here under his head to plug him into the car roof. Straighten him out, put the feet down against the car here. And, I don't know, you can have the wings either folded up or out, whatever you think looks better. And you can get this. And it looks pretty cool. Doesn't look like it really does anything because it's his beast mode just kind of hanging out. You can, if you want to, actually attach this in the weapon mode. So why don't we do that real quick. See how that looks. You got the weapon mode here, pointing forward like it is a blaster of some kind. And you would just plug it in via the same post. And personally, I think that makes a lot more sense. It doesn't look as good because it's a little too far up front. It looks kind of goofy. Yeah, the pterodactyl or bird mode kind of hanging on the roof, I think, is visually more pleasing, but it just doesn't really do anything. Here, at least you get some kind of firepower. So, yeah, it's up to you if you want to do that. Really, any configuration works, in my opinion, but some are definitely more practical than others. Here's a quick vehicle mode comparison with Jazz. And the first thing you'll really see is a very different color layout between these two. Jazz is styled like an actual race car with just kind of a big stripe down the middle, numbers on the sides. Jackpot, he's more of something that you'd see like a custom street racer. Something I like Fast and the Furious, just very flashy. Lots of yellow accents all over the black body there. And they just kind of do their own thing and look good in their own ways. Jazz is more, a little more classic racer, whereas this is, again, something you see that's a little more, suiting the taste of your underground street racing scene. And I like them both. That's what I was talking about with the feet. Just, I don't know. Something about Jackpot's use of the feet here just looks a little better to me. I'm not sure why. It might just be me being weird. I don't know. I think maybe it's the fact that he doesn't have the paint around the sides. Maybe it's the paint around the sides that really throws me off with Jazz. I don't know. But they both look fine. I mean, it is something that is a bit of an eyesore in both of their vehicle modes, but not so much where it makes me not want to buy the toy. I think it's adequate enough for, giving us a good robot mode. And now here we get a group shot with all of Seitz's mold mates. On the left you have Tiraxodon, who's the first use of the mold, and he was just a standalone release Battlemaster. Then you get Pterodactyl, who was part of the Phantom Strike Squadron, 3-pack that came with Skywarp and 2 other Battlemasters. Then you get Enerax, who came with the Netflix Optimus Prime and formed kind of a loose take on the character's classic Energon axe. And then we get Seitz. And like I mentioned, in every case but Seitz, there's paint on the head. And on the eyes and the crest for all of them. And it's so bizarre to me, right? Because that little bit of paint gives a lot of personality to these guys. For Tiraxodon, that red just contrasts against the black and green that he has. Pterodactyl gets these nice, baby blue eyes that stand out from the rest of his body. And then even Enerax, despite being the one that I would most expect to not have paint, since he's really just kind of a quick way of giving Optimus his axe, I was actually kind of surprised they bothered to paint his head. In fact, I think they painted his wings, too, with some silver. And then we get Seitz, who is just bare plastic all the way around. And that just kind of kills me. I'd love to see him with maybe, I'm picturing lime green eyes, maybe, and then even a crest in lime green. I think that would really work with the rich colors that he has. Again, not the worst thing in the world. I think he's got the coolest plastic colors out of all 4 of these guys, but he's really held back by the fact that they didn't want to invest that tiny little bit of budget into painting his head. There's not much there. Sometimes it's barely even noticeable, but when you get close up and look at him, it starts to stand out and looks kind of cheap, honestly. Okay, now here's all of our Battlemasters in their axe mode. You'll notice that a blast effect is conspicuously absent from Enerax here, and that's because he didn't include any. That was one of my big issues with that Optimus Prime 3-pack, is that they nixed the blast effects for both of his Battlemasters. Which was kind of weird considering that all of the other 3-packs that they had done up to that point did include all the blast effects. Anytime it came with a pair of Battlemaster characters, they always had their blast effects. And then with Optimus, they just decided to cut costs there, which is a shame, right? I would have liked to see a clear yellow version of this, but alas, that didn't happen. You'll also notice that the blast effects on Pterodactyl and Seitz are both orange, but you can't actually tell them apart. The one on Seitz is less opaque, and it has a bit of a sparkly characteristic to it. Like they put some kind of like glitter in there with the plastic mix. So if you do end up getting them mixed up, just look for the clear, more glittery version, and that's the one that goes with sights. Okay, now we can get Jackpot in his robot mode, wielding sights as an axe, and I'm very disappointed to report that even my Jackpot has this head alignment issue. Now, it's not as bad as some of the ones I've seen, but you can see that this whole kind of outer helmet area is two separate pieces attached, going this way vertically, and they seem to have a really hard time in the factory lining these up to where they're flush. And on my copy, this side's a little bit high, so the top of his helmet here, the little chin strap area, they're just a little bit crooked, and it looks pretty bad. Now, again, it's not the worst one I've seen, and it's not so bad that I would seek out like an exchange or something, but it is kind of annoying because one thing that the official Transformers brand is known for is really good head sculpts, like immaculate head sculpts. That's one thing I always noticed with like the Bakon stuff. Anytime they had a custom head, it was almost never to that same like sharp quality that the official Hasbro heads were. I don't know why. I mean, they all came from the same factories, but I guess just different designers or something. So when they do have a standard that they set so high, it's very disappointing to see a bit of a dud here. And again, it's kind of weird, kind of baffling, the decision to connect the halves going this way, because they almost always just kind of come across to where you have a front half and a back half instead of a left and a right. And if they had done it that way, this wouldn't look nearly as bad. But alas, decisions were made, and this is the end result there. Now, wielding sights as an axe is all well and good, but if you are craving that sweet, sweet G1 accuracy, then you're going to want to remove him from this. And I will say the handle is a very tight fit in Jackpot's hand. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it gave his fist some stress marks, because it's very tight. So all you have to do is just take the axe, point it this way with the axe handle now being a gun barrel, and then if you want to use the blast effect, just plug it on like so, kind of like a spraying type motion. I'm trying to figure out which way I like best, kind of like that way best. All right, and then you just go ahead, plug it in. Luckily, this post isn't nearly as tight in his hand as the axe handle, so you can get something more like this, and much more in tune with how the characters looked in their original form. And to me, this is where the whole set comes together, because you get a robot mode that does look very much like the original toy. Proportions are a bit different. The chest is wider because he actually has to turn into a car instead of just having like fake car details plastered onto him. But they do get the overall look down very well, and then having him wield his partner nice and proper like this, it does now feel like a proper update of the Action Masters. So I'm very happy with how this looks, minor QC issues aside. Here again for comparison is Jazz with his robot mode, so you can see just how similar or different these two are. Now as far as molding, their bodies are exactly the same. The only new molding you get is here on the heads. And I will say that Jazz's head sculpt really does blow Jackpot's out of the water because it's nice and clean looking. It's not crooked, it's not weird. Jackpot had the potential to look this good, but they really botched it there, and it is a shame. Because I'll say his colors and all that are fantastic. And because they are laid out so differently from Jazz, they don't feel too samey to me. Obviously they have the same body type, but I mean, the whole car hood chest is such a common thing, right? It was big on the Datsun brothers as well, even though they were very different looking from Jazz. And it's a design that's been reused over and over in like every iteration of Transformers. So like that by itself isn't enough for me to feel like they're, too much alike. It's just really a very common bit of Transformers anatomy. So I personally find them visually distinct enough to not feel like I'm just buying the same toy twice. I am very happy with the ways that Jackpot sets himself apart from Jazz. Now, I am a little sad that there isn't a third member here right now, because there should be a Stepper or Ricochet. Sadly, the last one we got was based off the Power of the Primes mold. It's an absolutely floppy mess. And it doesn't include a Target Master partner. So I'm not even going to show it here because it would just make me sad to look at it and see how lacking it is. Now, it doesn't mean that we should give up hope. There's absolutely no reason that Hasbro can't just recolor Jazz and give him his own Target Master partner. They have enough Battle Master molds to choose from now to where I wouldn't expect them to release Ricochet without his partner this time. With the last one, Power of the Primes, it did come before Siege when all those Battle Masters made their debut. So even though I'm pretty sure those toys were at least in the works at that point when he was released, maybe they just designed him much earlier and they weren't going to go change plans. But now I fully expect any potential Ricochet or Stepper to be a recolor of this guy and include, a really nice ranged Target Master or Battle Master type partner. And that's going to complete our look at the new Jackpot and Sights. Overall, I'm very happy with this set. It's not perfect. There are some issues, right? The weird head mismatch is a thing. And I do wish that Sights was an actual bird and not just a winged reptile. But considering how difficult it's been to get an actual updated Jackpot outside of like an BotCon animated toy, I think it's enough to be more or less satisfied. And it does look good overall. Despite the slightly crooked helmet, it's very visually appealing. I do like the colors on it. It's an interesting set because it's the first time a Studio Series toy and a War for Seibertron toy have been packaged together, which I guess does really go to show the synergy between the Studio Series 86 subline and your War for Cybertron trilogy. Now, they're not exactly the same. The Studio Series toys tend to have less ports on them as far as, weaponizer compatibility and all that. But they're definitely within the same vein, and they mostly work very well together. So I think it's a really good set. I think it's one of the more interesting ones. I do wish it could have been a little bit better, but for the $20-something or $30, whatever it is, I think it's more than enough. And does give me some hope that down the line we will eventually see Stepper or Ricochet from this mold finally complete that trio there. Of course, that's just how I feel about this toy, so now I want to know what you all think of it. Do you plan on picking this up, or did you already pick it up? Are you happy with it? Do you not like it? Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me today for this review of the new Golden Disc Collection, Jackpot and Sights. With all that said, I will see you next time.